What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into TTP Sports. And as we're sitting here on this Thursday night around quarter to 10, I really just can't stop thinking, and what's been going through my mind the past couple of nights is really going in towards last night's Sixers home opener. Not really for the game perspective, not what really happened in the game, it's really what's been leading up to the game, the terrible messaging by the Sixers or lack thereof, and really just a gigantic kick in the balls to the entire fan base. Because right now it feels like it's just going to be the same song and dance routine. But overall, I feel like what they're trying to do is the right thing. But one, I don't think we should trust the Sixers that they are capable of pulling this off because it's the Sixers. Nothing really goes right for this franchise whatsoever. Their messaging has been basically non-existent and or very poor because really everything just came at you in a blink of an eye with this entire Joel Embiid situation. And right now, the fan base has no trust, has no faith in this organization because it feels like just the same old crap that happens year after year after year after year. Because at this point, it feels like the fan base does not care about the regular season. The organization does not care about the regular season. That's just what it feels like the entire way. And that's just kind of a gigantic letdown, especially when it comes to the messaging about this whole plan or a concept of a plan with with this maintenance, this knee maintenance, or this, whatever they're trying to do with Joel Embiid to make sure that he is healthy, to make sure that he is almost near 100% for when it comes to the spring, for when you get into the playoffs, to where you can actually try to get a deep run into the playoffs with Joel Embiid, with Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and the rest of this group. And just the messaging right from the get-go. Preseason, Paul George gets injured. That was unfortunate. Really, maybe that was one of the things we should have expected. Paul George, near his mid-30s, on the wrong side of 30. Been very injury-prone throughout his entire career. You're granted you're going to have to deal with some type of injuries throughout Paul George's tenure here with the Philadelphia 76ers. That was probably going to be evident, but, preseason injury, hyperextension of his knee, became a bone bruise. Best case scenario probably with the way that it looked on the floor. And, just an unfortunate situation. I guess it was obvious he was not going to be ready to go for the home opener on that point. But for the whole Joel Embiid stuff, which really just annoys me, confuses me, and it really just does not feel like we have any type of answers whatsoever. Because, like I said, all of a sudden came out of the blue with Joel Embiid specifically. Like, we had the feeling that Paul George was going to play in the home opener, but then you get the confirmation that both Joel Embiid and Paul George don't play in the home opener against the Milwaukee Bucks. And that really sucks. That really sucks, like, one, from a fan base perspective, because I'm sure there were many people that bought their tickets a month ago, season ticket holders that had all their tickets, people that were, ready to go for NBA tip-off, ready to go for game one, especially. It's a big matchup in the Eastern Conference with the Sixers, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Sixers with a new core here, a fresh new face, adding Paul George to the mix, adding some different depth pieces to the bench. Andre Drummond comes back. You added some all these other guys to the roster. So it definitely would bring some excitement to people that want to go and see the first game. Also, I was there for the first game because my buddy, offered and say, hey, do you want to go to game one because I got a ticket? Do you want to go with me? I'm like, sure, why not? See the first game there. And just a huge slap in the face for two of the big guys that everyone was excited to see. Of course, people were excited to see Tyrese Maxey whole and whole. I was excited to see Tyrese Maxey. But just from the game's perspective, I think a lot of people probably knew what the outcome was going to be against Milwaukee without Paul George or without Joel Embiid. Really wasn't a contest. Milwaukee dominated the entire night. Sixers, they did some things nice. Definitely, I will compliment them on that. They couldn't hit their shots whatsoever. Tyrese Maxey, still, even though he's going to be constantly improving, still does not look even close enough to being a number one option, so he really struggled from that aspect. Struggled at the rim, struggled to finish shots, even though still doesn't get the foul help from the referees, which is an ongoing issue for Tyrese Maxey's perspective. But we all knew how that game was going to go from the get-go once we heard the news of Joel Embiid and Paul George not playing. So that is a huge slap in the face to the fan base. Basically saying, nope, we don't care about the opening night. And it's really from the fact that we have no clue. We have no idea whatsoever what's going on with Joel Embiid. All they're basically talking about right here is knee maintenance. We have no idea what the injury is. We have no idea if it's an injury that something happened in the Olympics. We have no idea if this is still the problem that's going on from even going back to last year when he had the meniscus surgery, coming back, when he wasn't really, fully 100%, obviously, when they play in the first round against the New York Knicks and they lose that series. Is it still, knee issues from that? Is it something that happened in the Olympics? Or for some way, shape, or form, was Joel Embiid just not ready to go? Was there an injury that happened in the offseason that prevented him from being ready to go? Or was this something that was planned from the very beginning? Joel Embiid, you're not going to be ready for game one of the NBA season. We're going to make sure that you're ready to go for the postseason, which means you're not going to start the beginning of the year. You're not going to play back-to-backs. You're going to play as basically as few games as possible to where we can have you in the fullest of health to better our chances for going on a deep playoff run. And yes, and not really hindsight, but in the general philosophy of the plan, I don't mind the idea of the load management for Joel Embiid. It definitely makes sense from that aspect because he has not been able to stay healthy at all going into any playoff run. He's always going into the playoffs around like 60, 70%, hobbling on one knee, or he gets elbowed in the face and he has to wear the mask, or something's going on with his hand. It's just always a different thing with Joel Embiid, but it also always comes back down to his legs. And sometimes legs are a constant problem with Joel Embiid's injuries. So, yes, I understand what they're trying to do. I understand, and the plan does make sense to that degree. But he can't be ready to go for game one. That's the tone you're going to set for your franchise going into the first game of the season, especially against the team you're going to be battling with in the Eastern Conference standings wise with the Milwaukee Bucks. It just doesn't make sense. Why? We all know Paul George wasn't going to play. Have Joel Embiid play. Have him play the first game. If you want to put him in limited minutes, put him in limited minutes. But he plays the game, and then when you go on your road trip, that's when Joel Embiid gets the rest. That's when Joel Embiid doesn't play. It just kind of seems like you ho-hummed it. Just kind of seems like you didn't really care about the home opener. You didn't really care about the first game of the season. Because it feels like, yes, in the grand scheme of things, the home opener is a regular season game, 1 of 82, that doesn't really mean that much. But it's your first game of the season. So many people are excited for the first game of the season because it starts a very long journey with the regular season for the NBA. And people that are enhanced in the full 82 game season, that are enhanced into every single game for the Sixers. It's just for the fact that it is such a huge slap in the face to them for basically all of this coming out of the blue. Now, do I think this entire thing is fully tied to the Olympics? I don't think so. He probably still could have been dealing with whatever he was dealing with in the Knicks series with that meniscus during the Olympics. I just don't know where this came from. Personally, I don't, even though we probably should have expected something health-wise with Joel Embiid because this has been following him this entire career. But it's just the entire messaging from this team. Nick Nurse already looks like he's had it with all the question marks surrounding this entire thing because people are trying to find so many answers and what is going on with Joel and what is this plan that they're even trying to consider with the load management or, this management, whatever plan that they're doing with Embiid. He already looks like he's done with it. He just looks like this man has had enough of those questions. It really does. And they always say, like, nope, there's no setbacks with Embiid. It's just what we're doing is a day-by-day thing. We don't think he is ready enough yet to start the game. And it really just feels like, because they really haven't told us anything. Last time we really heard from Joel Embiid and anything talking about, what the season was going to be like for him, and basically we're talking about, nope, not going to be playing back-to-backs. That's basically going to be the case. They're basically just stating their plan right there, right from the get-go. Joel Embiid is not playing in back-to-back games at all during the regular season. Will there be a chance that he plays in a back-to-back? Probably not. Honest to God, I'm trying to find a way to convince myself that there could be a chance that he plays in a back-to-back at some point during the regular season. But honest to God, I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. I'd be more shocked if I do see him appear on a second half of a back-to-back. I would be shocked if that's the case. Like I said, I'm trying to convince myself that there could be that chance, but no, in that process of those few seconds where I was like thinking in my mind, I was like, maybe, no, I don't see it whatsoever. But it's just like, for a team that goes through so many overhauls, whether it's coaching staff, whether it's roster, whatever the change is. They've gone through so much overhaul with the roster and the coaching staff over the past few years. Brett Brown, you have, the whole Ben Simmons thing. You got, Robert Covington's, Saric and all that stuff. You move on for them. You bring in Jimmy Butler. You bring in Tobias Harris. You bring in all these other guys. You flesh out that everything right there. JJ Redick and all that stuff. Brett Brown's still the coach. Okay, you do that. Move on. Brett Brown gets fired. In comes Doc Rivers. Jimmy Butler's gone. You keep Tobias Harris, blah, blah, blah. You make some more changes. Dwight Howard comes in. Seth Curry comes in. Andre Drummond comes in. That's done. Doc Rivers still the head coach. James Harden comes in. All this stuff, the lackluster bench. Okay, Doc Rivers is gone. Now it's Nick Nurse. And now blah, 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 blah is going on right here. You still have to deal with the Tobias Harris situation. You still got to deal with a weak bench. And now all that's gone. And now you got Paul George. Tobias is finally gone. You got a different bench. There's so many different changes that happens throughout each offseason for the Sixers team. There's really no sense of cohesion with any roster. And it kind of just feels like, with the way that they're trying to sound, what it sounds like right here, what it sounds like, basically ho-humming the entire regular season, where the regular season does not matter to them. All that matters is getting to the playoffs. All that matters is, doesn't matter the seed that we get. All that matters is that we get into the playoffs, and Joel Embiid is the healthiest thing that he possibly can be. And like I said, yes, from a general sense, that does make sense. But still, you got into the playoffs last year, especially when you didn't have Joel Embiid with the whole meniscus surgery. You ended up, what was it, the 5th seed or something like that? You had to play a second-round matchup in the first round against the New York Knicks. That's a second-round matchup in most years. And the fact that your play without Joel Embiid hindered you down that stretch and was one of the main reasons why you had to play the Knicks. Hello, Shoko. My cat wants to make an appearance. Hello, how are you doing? But it's just the entirety here of everything. And my cat is in my face. Go figure. Go figure. She does not like Joel Embiid at all. Will I keep that in the video? Most likely. Most likely. I don't feel like editing that out, so you got the little appearance from my cat there. She does not like it when I talk about the Philadelphia 76ers because she gets pissed off by Joel Embiid. Great stuff. And also, when I get the idea that they're trying to hum it for the regular season, where, like I said, they really don't care about the 182. All it cares about is just getting into the playoffs in general. I kind of feel like, especially for a team that goes through so many changes, roster-wise, coaching-wise, and everything like that, this is basically a brand new roster, with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey once again. Brand new bench, even though you did bring some guys back from last year. You brought in a lot of new faces, though. And I feel like the regular season should matter in that aspect to get some chemistry within those players, to figure out what type of team you're going to be, what type of system you're going to run, even though Nick Nurse's system is definitely not going to change over the course of the year. It's just, different players being introduced to that system and how it's going to work, and how there's chemistry flow between each of the players, between the rotations, from the starting rotation to the bench rotation, how everything is going to flow throughout the entire 182. And that can all determine what type of team it's going to be throughout the year, especially going into the playoffs. And really, if you don't have Joel Embiid in that mix, there's going to be a lot of things going weird there. And this team is definitely completely different without Joel Embiid on the court. We've known this for so many years now. And it was also completely evident when they were playing the team like Milwaukee, because when they didn't have Paul George, they don't have Joel Embiid, the size factor was clearly evident as day. They really didn't have anybody to guard Giannis. He went off, and also Dame Lillard went off. Also, the Bucks were just going completely crazy from beyond the arc. Their 3-point percentage, I believe, was like near 50 for the entire game. They were just going crazy from like the second quarter on. So yeah, that definitely isn't sustainable from that part. But it just kind of looked like their size and basically the lack of size that they do have on the court without Embiid, without Paul George, really kind of got exposed there by a bigger team. And you're going to need Joel Embiid to factor into that mix, Paul George to factor into that mix with the cohesion, with the new roster, everything like that to find, the chemistry on the offensive side, to find the chemistry on the defensive side. And it really does matter seating wise because you would prefer to have at least home court advantage in the regular season, at least until the Eastern Conference Finals, because I'd be very shocked if this Sixers team is even like near a top 3 seed in the conference, even a top 2 seed in the conference. They're probably going to be a 4th seed. They're probably going to be a 5 seed or something like that, especially with the little few games that Joel Embiid is probably going to play this year. Honest to God, if you think about it this entire way, how many games do you expect Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey to all play together at some point during the regular season? I really feel like the chances are slim, very slim. I wouldn't be shocked if it's below 30 games. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. Even, having Joel and like all three of those guys on the court, just, how many games is it just going to be Paul George and Tyrese Maxey? How many games is it just going to be, Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid? Like, how many times are we going to see Joel Embiid and Paul George in the same game together? Like, that's just something that's also going through my mind. What's also going to affect this team as the season goes along, and it's just very bothersome. It really is. And the messaging from the team just really feels like they're ho-humming it. It really does. There's no sense of urgency, honestly, to, try to tell the fan base anything because, like I said, this was a major surprise from Joel Embiid not playing in game one. And it doesn't sound like he's going to play in any games this weekend, it doesn't look like. Same thing with Paul George. He probably won't be playing in any games this weekend either. He probably won't be getting into his first game until next week at some point from the last time I heard. And then you also see that the NBA is investigating this entire thing with Joel Embiid and everything like that. So, honest to God, with all that crap going on, the Sixers have to be fucking dumb. This shit happens so many times. They get investigated so many times to where you think they would learn their lesson at some point, but I don't think they do. I think what they're doing, what they think they're doing is totally fine, that they're justified in doing this, and I just think they're fucking stupid. It really just feels like it. I have no other way to explain it. I really don't. And what should be a very fun journey of an 82 game season for the Sixers is once again going to be an annoying roller coaster ride. It's going to be through so many gut punches, through so many disappointments, through just, like I said, emotional roller coaster. You saw how pissed off people were on social media when Joel Embiid wasn't playing from game one. You saw how people, especially after the game, when watching that game last night in person, was honest to God really no life in the building. It really didn't feel like it. And especially with the way that the game was, with, Milwaukee dominating basically the entire time, people were leaving at the end of the third quarter. The stadium was mainly almost empty when the fourth quarter was rolling along. That's what it felt like, at least. There was a lot of patches in those seats. There was really no energy in the crowd. There was no atmosphere, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them whatsoever. They're putting a product out there that is missing significant pieces where people were barely warned about it. And I'm sure there were people out there that paid, a premium to get some of their seats. And it got so bad to where you're getting close to game time and tickets are insanely cheap on the secondary market. I think I saw like some tickets were near, as low as maybe $30 or something like that. Like, that's how cheap that people were willing to sell their tickets for because they knew people were not going to buy that stuff, especially, last minute, especially with, Embiid, especially without Paul George and all that stuff. And it really just feels like the fan apathy is just growing larger and larger and larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. It just doesn't give, it just doesn't pass a smell test. It just doesn't, a lot of things it just seems fishy to me for something they're not telling us. What happened with Embiid? Why is he not ready? What's going on here? All you're talking about is maintenance, 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 and all of a sudden this guy's not ready to go for game one. What happened? Is this Olympics related? Is this something that that he's still dealing with from last season from the meniscus surgery? Is this something brand new? What is the reason? You're not telling us. And we have no obligation to trust you because you have given us no reason over the past so many years to put our faith in you. Because the belief in this organization is just dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling and dwindling as the years go on. People want to be excited. People want to try to buy in. But it's so hard when you're not putting a product out there, when it basically sounds like you're trying to ho-hum it throughout a regular season, because Philadelphia fans are not going to appreciate that. They want you to go out there, give you your all throughout a full 82. They don't want you going out there and ho-humming it. They're not going to buy into that. They're just not. That's not what this fan base is like. It just isn't. And no wonder why you're seeing ticket sales on the secondary market get so cheap. Basically as cheap as you could say near the process days. That's how cheap tickets got for opening night. Fucking opening night. Where people are leaving at the end of the third quarter, where there's no atmosphere going on there in general. Feels like it was just a casual day at the arena. Nothing too intense, nothing like that. Felt like the atmosphere of a game probably against a bottom tier team in the NBA. This was against the Milwaukee Bucks. This was against the team that you're fighting for in the Eastern Conference for high seeding. The top team in the conference. There's no atmosphere, there's no life, there's no energy. And you're responsible for that. You, the 76ers, for basically kicking your entire fan base in the dick once again. I just don't get it. It's because there's no transparency. There's no telling anybody of anything. And granted, you're not going to play your entire deck in front of you. You're not going to basically explain what's going on, even though it kind of does feel like it did. Because, with Joel Embiid not playing back-to-backs, that can help teams prepare against that because, oh, we're playing the Sixers, they're on a second half of a back-to-back. Okay, they're not playing Joel Embiid. This is how we'll play them. This is how we'll match up against them. You're basically telling the entire league what your plan is going to be. It kind of feels like that. Teams can easily prepare for you. Because, okay, Joel Embiid's not playing on the second half of a back-to-back. All we got to really prepare for now is Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. And there could be a good chance that Paul George doesn't play. So it could just be Tyrese Maxey that we prepare for and plan for. That's what it feels like to me. It just seems fishy. It really does. And I'm more one of those people, to a fault, that also goes through the regular season, especially with the way the heartbreak and the frustration that this team has put the entire city through the past so many years. It's basically just been, get to prove it to me when you get to the playoffs. The regular season doesn't matter. I think the regular season does have to matter to an extent because, one, you got to seed for the playoffs, and two, you want to at least make sure you get some type of home court advantage in the playoffs because that really can matter in the NBA playoffs. Does this team give a damn? I have no idea. I have no idea because what they're doing to themselves, they seem like they're justified in doing it. And like I said, don't get me wrong. I think load managing Joel Embiid to an extent makes sense because this man has not been healthy at all throughout any playoff run. And you want to put him in the best possible position to at least be near 100% going into the playoffs so it can at least put this team in better positions to go on a deep playoff run, to finally get out of the second round, to finally get to an Eastern Conference final, to finally get back to an NBA final, and maybe even get the chance of winning a goddamn championship. But at the end of the day, with the way you're going through this plan, it better come out with some dividend. It better come out with some reward at the end. to where you're like, we're doing this. This is what we're doing. This is what our plan's going to be. Yeah, it might be a dreadful fucking 82-game season, but we trust us. Trust us. Joel Embiid is going to be healthy when the playoffs come and all of that stuff. We're going to put ourselves in the best possible position to succeed when it becomes spring, when it's April rolling around the corner, when we're getting into the first round of the playoffs. Okay, if that is your plan, if that's the way you're going, something has to be rewarded. You have to reward us with something. You have to get to it. You have to win a championship. You do. You have to win a championship. That's what you need to do. If you're going through all of this stuff, if you're basically pulling what the Toronto Raptors did with Kawhi Leonard back in 2019, with all the load management stuff there, and all the few games that he played, with the way that he played in that playoff run, that's what we need from the Sixers. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to do. Is that putting expectations too high? No, I think it's very fair. I think it's very fair because if they're going to ho-hum for the regular season, get into the playoffs, and they're telling us Joel Embiid is going to be healthy by that point, you better do something in the playoffs because if you do all of this and it turns out to be another first round loss, another second round loss would add another year of going past the second round, but getting even near an NBA final, I don't even know what you do after that. I don't even know what you do after that. You might as well retract the franchise. You might as well retract it because you've tried basically everything at this point. And this is probably the most desperate that you are of trying to get Joel healthy. And like I said, it's understandable why you're doing it. It's just that the way you're messaging it is so brutal. So brutal. You need to win an NBA championship if you're doing all of this. You have to. You have to at the end of the day. And that's what needs to happen. It just does. That's what needs to happen. Sorry, you put yourself in that position. You put yourself in that position with being the franchise that you are. Sorry, not sorry. So, we do have a couple of calls here on the Anytime Hotline. So, we might as well get to those, see what some of the people think about all the stuff with Joel Embiid and the Sixers and how they're feeling right now. So, let's get to that. We got one call from Trey. We got one call from Sean. So, let's go to Trey's call first. See what he's got to say here.
What's up? I love your show, man. The whole Joel Embiid thing is a little tricky situation, I will say, but I want to say don't panic. It's only game one. You know, I really love what we saw from the squad against the Bucks, and you know, it's all about keeping both of the guys healthy, right, for the postseason. And while I think the organization is wrong that they, you know, they're withholding information from us, not telling us exactly what it is, because I think that's my biggest issue. I really don't care that, you know, if he doesn't play a certain amount of games, as long as he's in the playoffs healthy, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, I mean, understandable. Definitely there. You know, yeah, that's one of the things that frustrates me the most, too, is just the messaging. Really, at the end of the day, like I said, I think it's justifiable what they're doing with Embiid. I think it is. But it's just the fact that it feels like they don't care about the regular season, and especially with all the changes that you made in the offseason, I think you need to care to an extent as an organization. I think you do. It's just not that, oh, Joel Embiid's going to be healthy for the postseason run. Oh, we're going to have success. If you're doing that, you got to find a way to win. You definitely do. And yes, there were some positives to take away from the first game. No, I'm not holding that back. But it's just that it's going to be another grudge. It's going to be another sludge of an 82-game season. That's going to be such a kick in the dick. It's not going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be a hassle. That's what I'm not having fun with, personally, in my opinion. I just don't. Let's get to Sean. See what Sean's got to say.
So when it comes to the 76ers, I, like most, am confused as to why they seem to be being singled out with what they're doing with Embiid. I mean, load management has been a part of the NBA for years. They're doing no different than a lot of these other teams do. And I'll just say this from the Sixers' perspective, I don't blame them one bit. I mean, two of your three main guys are guys that are notoriously always hurt. And when it comes to Embiid, he seems to get hurt at the worst possible time. If I'm the 76ers, look, the regular season is basically a glorified exhibition season. Just get in the playoffs. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter what seed you are. I don't even care if Embiid plays like 30 games in the regular season. Just get in the playoffs. And the only way to ensure any playoff success is to rest George and Embiid as much as possible. So I don't blame the Sixers one bit. Maybe their technique in doing what they're trying to do may not be the best, but the idea behind it, I think, is pretty damn smart.
Yeah, it's still the same thing. Like I said, I don't think it's wrong to put Joel Embiid into load management. That makes the most sense in the world. I think it's just for the fact that we have no idea what's going on. There's no transparency from the entire organization. Their messaging is completely terrible. Like I said, all of this really came out of the blue with the whole knee situation, the knee management, and all that stuff. It's really just the fact, how are you not ready to go for game one? That's what I really want to know. And yes, game one, like I said, it's really meaningless in the entire grand scheme of things. But especially when game one is such a big game in the season just because it is the first game, Joel Embiid should be ready to go for that game. And then you can rest him for a certain amount whenever you want to. I feel like that should be one of the cases there. But it also just doesn't. But I think seeding does matter, and it should matter, because I think home court advantage should matter in the NBA. I think getting at least a top 4 seed should be the goal for this team, but I have no idea if that's going to be the case now. It probably is going to be a 5th seed. It probably is going to be a 6th seed or something like that. And they're saying, you're going to have to go on the road for 2. You're not going to have home court advantage basically at all in the playoffs if you go to that extent. So there's just the entire regular season is just going to be such a sludge. It's going to be such an emotional roller coaster, like I said. It's not going to be fun to watch. And I understand that's because you want the main goal. You want Joel Embiid to be healthy for a playoff run. I get it. I get it. And I understand it. Their messaging is just so bad. It's so bad. It's such a kick in the dick to the fan base. It really is. It really is. Just the fan apathy with this franchise is like at an all-time low. Nothing you do is gonna gain trust from the fan base because you're running on very thin strings as it is, thin ice as it is. So if you're doing this, it's got to work out. It has to. Because if you don't succeed, especially after you do this, I don't know how you recover from it. I just don't. So I don't know. Well, ran a little bit long here than I wanted to, but I had to get all that, stuff out of my mind and out of my system. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in whenever you do. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Does me a very great deal of service. And also don't forget to use the code TTPSPORTS. $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Great deal. Do not pass it up. The Sixers frustrate me. I'm sure they frustrate a lot of you. This better pan out at the end. Just hoping so. Hopefully it is. But appreciate you guys as always. You know that. And I will see you next time.